Hello everyone, welcome to Data Engineering Studies. In the Azure Real-Time Scenarios playlist, we are going to see an interesting Azure use case. The scope of this use case is we are going to create an Azure pipeline which unzips a set of files from the source location and load the files into the respective folders. If you see the source location, we have three zip files, 2024 data, 2023 data and 2022 data. While loading these files to the target location, we are creating three folders dynamically and we are unzipping the files and loading these files in the respective folders. That is, 2024 data.txt is getting loaded into the 2024 folder. 2023 data.txt file got loaded into the 2023 folder and 2022 data.txt file got loaded into the 2022 folder. We are going to create one single pipeline which uncompresses the files and dynamically create the folders and load the files into the respective folders. I hope the scope of this use case is clear. Now let's get into the implementation. Here is our storage account. Inside our storage account, we have two folders, source and the target. Inside the source folder, we have set of files. We have one 2021 data file, one 2022 data file. We have two 2023 data files and two 2024 data files. And let's open one of the files. And unzip this file. If you see here, we have 2021 data.txt file. Inside that, we have the data 2021 data. The other files are in the same pattern. We have a txt file inside the zip file. We are going to load this file inside the target folder. Currently the target folder is empty. Inside the target folder, we are going to create subfolders based on the file name and we are loading the files into the respective folders. Now let's create the pipeline to load the data. For that, let me go to Azure Data Factory. Here is my Azure Data Factory homepage. Let me go to Author and create a new pipeline. Let me create a new pipeline. I'm going to name my pipeline as PL sample. In order to read the zip file names from the source directory, I'm going to add a get metadata activity. Let me do that. Let me add a get metadata activity. Let me go to the settings and create a new data set. Let me click new. My source files are in Azure Blob Storage. So I'm going to select Azure Blob Storage and let me continue. Our source files are txt files which are inside the zip folder. So I'm going to select binary and click continue. Let me name a data set as ds source sample metadata. Now let's create a linked service pointing to the source container. Let me click new. I'm going to name my linked service as ls source sample. Here we have to select auto resolved integration runtime because our files are inside Azure. Let me select my Azure subscription and select my storage account name. Now let me test my connection. My connection is successful. Let me create the linked service. The linked service is successfully created. Now let me select my source file path. I'm not going to select any specific files because we are going to load all the files. Let me select OK and click OK again. Let me publish till this point and run our pipeline once. Let me publish. The field list in get metadata activity is not selected. Let me do that. This get metadata activity is to read the zip file names. So in the field list, I'm going to select child items. Let me select child items. Now let me publish it. The pipeline is successfully published. Now let's trigger the pipeline once. Let me go to the output. We see here inside the child items, we have all the file names inside the name key and the type, which is a file in key value pairs. Let me copy this output and store in a notepad. Let me go back to the pipeline again. Let me close this. The next step is to iterate over the zip file names and unzip the file. In order to do that, let me import a for each activity. Let me add a for each activity. And inside the for each activity settings, inside the items, I'm going to select get metadata activity child items. Why I am selecting get metadata child items? If you see here, inside the child items, we have a list, and inside the list, we have all the file names in the key value pairs. In order to do that, I'm going to select get metadata child items. Now let me click OK. I want all the files to be iterated sequentially. I'm going to select this checkbox, sequential. Now inside the for each activity, I'm going to add a copy data activity. The copy data activity is to read the zip files, unzip the files and load to the target location. Let me go to the source settings. Inside the source data set, I'm going to select the same data set that we used in the get metadata activity. And I'm going to select wildcard file path. Why I'm selecting the wildcard file path is because I can get the file names easily from the for each activity. Let me select the source location. My source folder path is source / and the file name is from the for each activity. For each activity dot name. We see that the file names are in the name key, right? So we are selecting for each activity dot name. Let me click OK. Our source setting is completed. Now let me go to the sync setting and create a sync data set. Our sync data source is also Azure Blob Storage. I'm going to select Azure Blob Storage and click continue. The files are txt files, so I'm going to select binary. Let me click continue. I'm going to name my data set as ds target sample. For the linked service, I can use the same linked service that we used for the source because our target directory is also in the same storage account. Let me select the file path. Let me select the storage account. The unzipped files needs to be loaded into the target folder. Let's ignore this error for now because we don't have any files in our target folder. That's why we are seeing this error. Let me click OK. Let me click OK again. For the copy data activity, the source and the sync settings are successfully completed. Let me publish the pipeline till this point. The pipeline is successfully published. We have to do a couple of more things. let me go to the source data set. Here is my source data set. Our source files are zip files. So in the compression type, I'm going to select zip deflate, and the compression level I'm going to select optimal. The source dataset settings are completed. Let me go to the target dataset. We need to load the target files on respective year folders. In order to do that, let me click parameter and create a parameter called year. And in the connection, the target file path is a concatenation of target and the year parameter, comma. I'm going to add a slash at the end. Inside the target folder, we'll be creating a year folder and followed by a slash. Now let me click OK. Let me go to the pipeline again and go to the target setting. The year is a substring of the first 4 characters. That is, in our file name, we have to select the first 4 characters. Let's implement that. In order to do that, I'm going to use a substring function. For each activity dot name, we need to parse from the index position 0 to 4 characters. That is, from the name, we are selecting the first 4 characters. I hope it makes sense. Now let me click OK. That's pretty much it. Let me publish and see if there are any issues. Let me click publish. The pipeline is successfully published. Let me trigger the pipeline. Let me go to the pipeline run. The copy data activity is called 6 times because we have 6 different files. The pipeline ran successfully. Let me go to the storage account. Let me go to the target. We see that the folders are successfully created. Let me see if the files are unzipped. The files are unzipped and loaded into the respective folders. Let me go to the next folder, 2022. The files are successfully loaded. Let me go to 2023. 2 folders got created, and inside that, the files are successfully loaded. And inside the 2024 folder, we got subfolders and the files are successfully loaded. One issue that I see is that inside the 2024 folder, we again got subfolders. If you don't want the subfolders to be created and if you want directly the files to be loaded into this 2024 folder, we can do that as well. Let me go to the pipeline, and in the copy data activity, in the source settings, if we scroll down, there is an option called preserve zip file names as folder. If you don't want the subfolders to be created, you can uncheck this. Let me publish. Now let me delete the files in the target directory. Inside the target directory, I'm going to delete all the files. Now my target directory is empty. Now let me trigger the pipeline. Let me go to pipeline run. All the files are getting copied. The pipeline runs successfully. Now let me go to the target directory and click refresh. We see that the folders are successfully created, and inside the folders we see that the files are successfully unzipped and loaded into the appropriate directory. Let me go to the next directory, 2024. We see that 2 files got copied. Let me open one of the files and see the data. Let me download this file. The data is also successfully loaded. With this, we have successfully unzipped and loaded the files into the appropriate directory. I hope this use case was helpful, and I'm sure that you learned something new today. If you do like this video, please consider to subscribe, and I will see you in yet another interesting Azure use case. Thank you.